In today's video, I'm going to tell you who I think is going to dethrone every single current active champion in the WWE as of October 2024. So we're going to look at every champion, including those on the main roster, all the way down to those down in NXT. This is actually a monthly series on this channel, which gives us an opportunity to stop, look around, smell the roses, and analyze current feuds and where those feuds might go. So I'll tell you who I think is going to dethrone that champion, and I'm going to try and give you the reasons as to why I think that's going to be the case. I'll be honest, with some of these, I'm reaching because we have brand new champions as of the last video, and these new champions barely have new feuds going on as of the making of this video. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I know you're going to fall in love with this YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. All right, folks, let's jump into it. Let's start things off with the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. And in the last video, the champions were the team of Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, and they are still the champions. Now, in the last video, I predicted that they would eventually lose these championships to the team of Damage Control. Here's the thing, when I made this initial prediction, there was nothing going on between Damage Control and Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. They weren't even close to feuding with one another, but since the last video, this feud, wouldn't you know it, has actually started and has started to gain some traction and legs to the point where we're actually going to be getting a WWE Women's Tag Team Championship match between the team of Kairi Sane and Io Sky. So this prediction might eventually come to fruition, just not yet. And ultimately, I do think that if there is a team that has the pedigree to be able to fully dethrone Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, it is the team of Damage Control, a team that has one, star power behind them, two, a future WWE Hall of Famer at the pace that she's going with her career in Io Sky, and three, a team that has a lot of history already ingrained with the likes of Bianca Belair, dating back for as long as about 2 years since they've been feuding. So it's a team with the ability in terms of pedigree and skill, and a team that has history and legacy and lore alongside Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, who, by the way, won their initial tag team championships by beating Damage Control. So this could be a nice full circle moment. We'll see. I obviously don't know what the result of the Women's Tag Team Championship match is. It's actually very possible that the feud goes on even beyond this Tag Team Championship match. So even if Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair retain in this upcoming championship defense, I don't think that their feud with Damage Control is over. I don't think we're too far away from this happening, so I'm going to stick with this prediction. I'm going to say that Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair will lose their WWE Women's Tag Team Championships to the team of Damage Control, most likely just consisting of Io Sky and Kairi Sane, but I'm using just Damage Control as a whole in case Dakota Kai comes back and becomes part of this picture, but I don't think that that's going to be the case. Let's talk about the absolute worst championship in the WWE today, the World Tag Team Championships, a championship that just gets absolutely no love, no screen time, and it really just is, at this point, just a decoration that barely even gets screen time because the champions even half of the time go out in TV without wearing the championships in the first place. In the last video, the champions were and still are the team of Judgment Day, consisting of Finn Balor and JD McDonough. And since they've won these championships, which has now been over 100 days, they have defended the championship once, which, fellas, it makes it really hard to make these goddamn videos if you're never defending these championships and if you're not even having feuds for these championships in the first place. Come on, give me something here to work with, for God's sake. And when I look at the landscape of Monday Night Raw, I don't see this going anywhere anytime soon because the tag team division of Monday Night Raw is so underdeveloped at the moment. And part of the reason why it's so underdeveloped is because the champions are not being utilized to develop said tag team division. So I can't even really think of anybody that could logically take these titles off of them. So I have to kind of reach here. In the last video, I had suggested that perhaps we get a storyline with the New Day coming back together to take these World Tag Team titles off of the Judgment Day. It looked like with the firing of Odyssey Jones, the removal of Karrion Kross from the storyline, that they really weren't going to continue to pursue this storyline of the separation of Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston, but it looks to be like that story has now come right back, and that's exactly where it's going. So I don't actually foresee the New Day being the ones to dethrone the the Judgment Day anymore based on how the New Day is currently being booked. So I have to just take a completely different direction, a direction that frankly, I'm not even entirely convinced by, because this is a reach. The LWO. Listen, the LWO is the only team that's even remotely acting as a team outside of the Judgment Day, and they're the only team that has any sort of foothold within a storyline with the Judgment Day. Look, it could be any combination of members of the LWO, maybe Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee to have a pair of masked champions to maybe set up a WWE debut of the Lucha Brothers, masked champions versus masked contenders would be pretty cool. Listen, again, I'm reaching here. There's nothing in place right now for LWO that makes me believe that they could be the next World Tag Team Champions, but there's just nothing in place at all for this division on Monday Night Raw. I got nothing to work with here, folks. So I'll throw this one out into the universe, mostly because I kind of like the idea of masked champions defending against the Lucha Brothers when they debut in the WWE. So we'll say some combination of members from the LWO. The WWE Tag Team Championships, over on the other hand, on Friday Night SmackDown, are being treated miraculously because they are currently being held, and as of the last video, were also being held by the Bloodline, specifically Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa. And as of the making of the last video, they've defended their championships in what is a match of the year contender, the three-way triple threat ladder match for these said titles against DIY and the Street Profits, in a match where Bachaloa ended the stigma that he would mess up and trip and destroy the ladder. The Botchhood dream has come true. The miracle on Botch Street. Our boy Tonga Loa is now a proper tag team champion in my eyes. But the beauty of this reign so far has been that these titles have been involved in the main event story that the Bloodline has been a part of, but all alongside the main event storyline with Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, and everything that's going on over there, they've also been involved in the tag team division, elevating the tag team division, having tag team feuds, having tag team matches. Please take note, Judgment Day. In the last video, I said that DIY would be the ones to dethrone the Bloodline for these tag titles. I just felt like they never really got a proper first run with these championships in the first place, and that once this storyline would eventually start to die down, they would go back to a traditional tag team like DIY. This story is not close to dying down. In fact, they've added even more fire to the flame with the return of Roman Reigns, the return of Jimmy, the return of the final boss, The Rock. So I'm going to go with a completely different direction here. This is a stretch. It's a reach, but I feel like these two are closer to tag championships than DIY are at the moment, and same with the Street Profits. So just stick with me at the very least for this month. Maybe when I make this video next month, I'll be like, this was a stupid choice. I'm thinking about Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso here. We had the return of Jimmy at Bad Blood. They had this beautiful moment, this embrace of Jimmy saving Roman Reigns, Roman saying, "You did that. You called that play. You were the quarterback." They hugged. They had this great moment. They even saved Cody Rhodes, kind of like a tag team there. So I could see this potentially happening, maybe even as early as Crown Jewel. So we'll see. It's a reach, it's a stretch, I understand, but just level with me here. There's not too much going on for me to be able to truly extrapolate a really logical champion at the moment, because both DIY and Street Profits both lost cleanly to the Bloodline, so I gotta go in a different direction for this month, so I'm gonna go Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso. The NXT Tag Team Championships, these have been on absolute lockdown by Fraxium, Nathan Frazier, and Axiom, to the point where I don't see anyone coming close to dethroning these guys. People are saying I'm reaching. I think they are the greatest tag team ever in the history of NXT. I get it. DIY is there. I get it that FTR is there. But these guys have accomplished more than pretty much every other tag team in the history of NXT. Look it up. I mean, you're welcome to. You can throw out bigger names. Yes, the Wyatts were in NXT as tag team champions. But in terms of what they've accomplished, Fraxium might just be at the top of this list. Now, in the last video, I said, and logically might I add, that the Motor City Machine Guns might be the ones to dethrone Fraxium because they were a brand new tag team. This is a legendary tag team as well with a huge name behind them. But it looks like they're going to SmackDown, that they're not going to NXT. So I have to now go in a totally different direction. And when I look at the tag team division of NXT, it's sparse. There is not much in terms of traditional tag teams going on in NXT. So I gotta find a different route here, okay? I'm thinking Brooks Jensen and Shawn Spears. They're slowly building this partnership, this camaraderie between the two that's very dark, very much the complete opposite of what Fraxium offers. So they could be a really good polar opposite for a feud against Nathan Frazier and Axiom. This is also a reach. There is nothing connecting these two tag teams at the moment. The storyline and the development of Brooks Jensen and Shawn Spears is still in its infancy stage, but I got nothing else. Like, I just don't think that Hank and Tank are the team to dethrone Fraxium, and they're really the only other kind of hot tag team on NXT at the moment. So I'm going to go with a bit of a flyer here. Brooks Jensen and Shawn Spears. God, the strength is insane on one foot. Oh my gosh. AEW superstar. Oh my God.
Oh no. People say Brock Lesnar.
Oh my God. That was a sneak peek of this week's Wrestling is Cool Match Club, which is available exclusively on patreon.com/SantiZap. This week, we're looking at the champion versus champion match between AJ Styles and Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series 2017. We've got an NXT classic between Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate at NXT TakeOver Chicago. An all-time classic from WrestleMania 3 between Macho Man Randy Savage and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. The WrestleMania 25 Money in the Bank ladder match. And a women's classic clinic of a match between Io Sky and Mayu Iwatani at Stardom and Climax 2016. On top of that, you're going to be getting the 1998 Royal Rumble watch-along. You're getting all of this plus the Raw reviews, SmackDown reviews, and the Wrestling is Cool podcast 3 days earlier than everywhere else. We're trying really hard to jam-pack the Patreon with as much value and as much content as possible, all of which is content that we can never show on YouTube. So consider coming over to the Patreon. That's patreon.com/SantiZap. I'm confident that if you even give it 1 month that you're going to fall in love with not just the content, but the community over on Patreon. All right, that's it for the sellout. Back to the video. The Women's North American Championship has been on lockdown by Kanani Jordan. And in the last video, I had predicted that she would lose this championship to JC Jane. I'm not entirely convinced that this still might not happen. Like, I think there is a possibility that JC Jane could be the one to dethrone Kanani Jordan. Like, their feud hasn't really gotten going, but it's a feud that still exists. It's a feud that hasn't had a championship match as of yet, but the team of Social Fatal Influence, that's the name of their team, and JC Jane have called their shot. They won the North American Championship. So that feud's still going on. However, I look at kind of the looming landscape of the women's division, and we just had the debut of Stephanie Vaquer as a face. We had the debut of Julia as a face. There's a third name. Well, I almost gave you the I did give you the finger. Sorry. There's a third name looming in there as a big free agent signee. That's Delta. And I just don't see all three of them coming in as baby faces. So I see Delta coming in and being a monster heel, immediately starting in the women's mid-card and being the one to dethrone Kanani Jordan. I'm going to go with Delta. What happened? No. How? Look, listen, I'm sorry. I take credit for what happened. In the last video, Obafemi was the North American champion, and nothing seemed like it was going to change. Obafemi was the guy. Obafemi was unstoppable. Obafemi was literally the mountain that you could not climb. There was no one at all that seemed like a danger to Obafemi, to the point where I was basically predicting that Vacant would win this championship, that Oba would just relinquish this championship, or, you know, heaven forbid, knock on wood, an injury that would force him to vacate the championship. I just didn't see anybody beating Obafemi. In the last video, I had suggested that maybe the young OG, maybe Javon Evans, with time, I was thinking like months out, maybe even as far out as NXT Stand and Deliver during WrestleMania season, that Javon Evans might play that plucky underdog to dethrone Obafemi. But dear God, what? The Dawn of NXT, Tony D'Angelo, who has been chasing this championship for 2 years, defeated and dethroned the unstoppable Obafemi with the most deadly move in the game a roll-up. Now, I take kind of credit here for what happened because during this match, I played KSI's terrible new song. I did. And I think it brought Obafemi such terrible luck. Maybe Obafemi heard the song, saw how horrible it was, and just couldn't bear it anymore, and just did the job and lied down for Tony D'Angelo. But nonetheless, Tony D'Angelo is your new North American champion, and what a story, what a chase. Good for Tony D'Angelo. I did not see this coming in any capacity. So where do we go from here? I'll be honest, I don't think that Obafemi comes back for the North American Championship. I think Obafemi has some bigger goals and aspirations after being probably the most dominant North American champion in the history of NXT. So I'm going to go back into the well, and I am going to say the young OG. I feel like when I look at the future outlook of Javon Evans, what he just did with Randy Orton, the fact that clearly WWE sees him as a potential pillar to build NXT around, and you could start that off with a North American Championship reign. I'm going to stick with Javon Evans, but I don't know when. I really don't know, because Javon Evans, as of the making of this video, is actually involved in the title picture for the NXT Championship. So we'll see. There's really nothing to go off of because this is a fresh championship change. Like, it happened 2 days ago as of the making of this video. So I just kind of gotta guess at the moment based on the landscape of the mid card. I'm gonna say Javon Evans. The United States Championship, in the last video, it was held by LA Knight. This has not changed. LA Knight has defended the championships a couple of times, including in a marquee match against Andrade, a very good match, a match that didn't really seem to end their feud. So I do foresee more Andrade being involved in this championship picture. However, there's 3 sides to this coin. It's not 2. There's Andrade, there's LA Knight, but then there's Carmelo Hayes, the guy that I think will be the one, once the dust settles of this like 3-way battle for the United States Championship, the guy that I think it will eventually stand tall as the United States champion. So I'm not going to change this. This is who I predicted in the last video. Carmelo Hayes has a championship opportunity coming up on Friday Night SmackDown. So this is clearly in conversation. The wheels are moving, at least as a possibility. The Intercontinental Championship was another one of those championships that I just didn't think was going to go anywhere anytime soon. Oh boy, how wrong I was. In the last video, the champion was Braun Breaker, and I had predicted that Braun Breaker down the line, like I'm talking at some point in 2025, would lose the championship to a growing, budding star in Bronson Reed. They never even looked at each other. There was nothing going on between these two. I was really projecting to the future. I was projecting this feud to not start for months. And then what ended up happening was that Braun Breaker magically, seemingly, lost this championship to Jey Uso, the perennial bridesmaid, the guy that's not supposed to win these big ones, because over the last 12 months, the WWE has accustomed us to him losing every single singles accolade match that he has. And I thought this was going to be another one of those situations, but no, Jey Uso walked away with the championship. And right now, as of the making of this video, there's not a heck of a lot going on. There's still the Braun Breaker storyline. Braun Breaker said he was moving away from the Intercontinental Championship by turning face and then kind of looking towards Gunther. That didn't really materialize because he came right back and is still feuding with Jey Uso. There's also Xavier Woods in the picture, kind of. So there's some sharks going on, but hear me out for a second, all right? I need you to grab something warm, sip on a nice cup of cocoa, and just hear me out for a second, okay? Don't throw tomatoes at me. Don't boo me. This man right here, Dominic Mysterio. He has all of the heel heat to be able to dethrone a major uber babyface like a Jey Uso. On top of that, there's plenty of history between these two that's been created over the last several months with the involvement of Jey Uso in the Judgment Day and him and Mommy becoming a thing when Dominic and Mommy were originally a thing. So there is something there. So if Jey Uso can hold this championship for a little while, if he can get past Xavier Woods and get past Braun Breaker, there's a possibility that the best available feud for Jey Uso for that Intercontinental Championship is none other than Dirty Dominic Mysterio. Look, I know I'm the big time Dominic Mysterio glazer, but you have to at least have this in the back of your brain, right? I don't think I'm talking complete lunacy when I say this. The women's NXT Championship, this thing is a bee's nest right now. You got Cora Jade in there, you got Stephanie Vaquer, you got Julia in there, and I can't pick. Look, all right? Look, it is Roxanne. She's been a super dominant champion, was the champion last time that we made this video, is the champion as of the making of this video. Look, it's Stephanie Vaquer or Julia. Just take your pick. Stephanie Vaquer or Julia. Just pick one, all right? It's one of these two, all right? They're already teasing at the fact that this might end up being a triple threat match, so it could literally just be a toss-up at this moment, but one of these two is going to be your NXT Women's Champion sooner rather than later, I would imagine. The WWE Women's World Title, the champion as of the last video, was Liv Morgan, and I'm not really going to change too much here. I do think that the destination of this World Championship is for it to land right back in Rhea Ripley's arms. This feud is not over. This feud continues to be stretched out with new wrinkles like the addition of Raquel Rodriguez in here, but I still think that destination is Rhea Ripley as the Women's World Champion. I'm not going to overcomplicate this. The WWE Women's Championship has been in a bit of a roller coaster ride. The champion in the last video was Nia Jax and is still Nia Jax. She just defended the championship at Bad Blood against Bayley, and she even had a championship defense against Mia Yim. Like, she's been a fighting champion, and she's been great. She's been having some really entertaining matches and storylines. In the last video, I had predicted that she would lose the championship to a returning Charlotte. Charlotte has not come back, and I feel like they might be saving Charlotte for something really big, like a big show. Perhaps not where well is the big show, not that type of big show. I'm talking like Survivor Series, or maybe Saturday night's main event, or maybe even waiting as far out as the Royal Rumble for the return of Charlotte. We'll see. I'm going to go in a different direction now because the storyline between Tiffany Stratton, who I think will dethrone Nia Jax, and Nia Jax has really escalated. They've gone from just chummy best heel friends to having kind of a proper feud against one another. And I mean, if anybody's got the proper smoking gun right now at this moment to dethrone Nia Jax, it's not anybody that's active right now aside from Tiffany Stratton. So I'm going to say that Tiffany's the one that finally takes that championship off of the dominant Nia Jax. The NXT Championship was one of those championships that changed hands as of the last video. In the last video, we had Ethan Page as the champion, and I predicted that Trick Williams would be the one to dethrone him. I even told you that I think he dethrones him on the opening episode of NXT on the CW network, and that's exactly what happened. Look, I get it. Like, the NXT wanted like a big moment for their NXT debut on the CW, and this was it. So it was a bit of a predictable choice if you could just look a little bit into the future. So where does this go from now? Because Trick Williams does have a feud potentially brewing right now, still with Ethan Page. Javon Evans has been tossed into the picture. Wes Lee's in the picture. But I don't think any of those guys are the ones to dethrone Trick Williams. I also don't foresee a championship change until the new year. I don't see him losing at NXT Deadline. I don't even know if that's a show happening this year. As far as I know, it hasn't been announced. I just don't see this being a thing until probably Stand and Deliver. But there's a new player in town, a new player that just became a player because he finished playing a different game earlier. He finished playing the North American Championship game. Now we're talking about Obi Fi. You have to. There's no other place for Obi Fi to go. If it's not the main roster, it's right here. And the second Obi Fi enters the NXT World Title picture, he's winning the damn thing. He just is. This guy is too strong, too dominant, and frankly, not only is he everything that you could ever want out of a WWE superstar from an in-ring perspective, this guy, during his time as North American champion, has actually developed into a great storyteller, and he's really good on the mic as well. He's ready. He really, really is. It's just about finding the right moment to crown somebody like Obi Fi. I think that Trick is going to hold this for a few months. He's going to hold past Halloween Havoc, past the new year, probably past Vengeance Day early in the year. If this happens, which I think it will, I think it'll be several months out. So we're probably going to have Obi Fi in this position for a while if I kind of am seeing things the way that they are. Now let's talk about the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. In the last video, the champion was Gunther, the Ring General, and he is still the World Heavyweight Champion. And since the last video, he has defended the championship against Sami Zayn in what was supposed to be a no-stress title defense. But with the insertion of Goldberg into the picture, it made everyone think that that there was a potential that Sami Zayn might actually dethrone Gunther with the help of Goldberg. I'm happy to tell you that this didn't end up happening, and Gunther's championship doesn't look like it's going to be in any danger for the foreseeable future because his next feud is a non-championship feud against Cody Rhodes as we go into Crown Jewel, which is about 3 weeks away. So Gunther is likely safe with this championship until at the very minimum Survivor Series. So we have to analyze where Gunther could go after Crown Jewel, because any feud that happens between now and Crown Jewel is kind of null and void at the very least when it comes to taking this championship away from Gunther. And I think we need to think pretty far out. Like, Gunther is going to hold this thing for a while. I'm going to go with Braun Breaker. I'm realizing now that I don't have who I had in the last video. In the last video, I had John Cena. I don't know that that's going to happen anymore. We had that moment between Braun Breaker and Gunther, and those moments we've seen these play out before. They did this last year between Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch, where they would have the occasional stare down or moment backstage once every couple of months, and that eventually amounted to a WrestleMania match between the two. We've had the first stare down backstage between Gunther and Braun Breaker, and I think this could actually be the WrestleMania 41 match. And look, if Braun Breaker is in a championship match, there's a good chance that he's going to win. I would probably take him. I think he would be a betting odds favorite. There's nothing going on right now between Braun Breaker and Gunther aside from just that simple stare down backstage. But to me, that's enough to start connecting some dots all the way out to WrestleMania. And the WWE Undisputed Championship. There's a lot going on right now. You got Kevin Owens. You got the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns. Solo Sikoa still hovering around. We now had the addition of the final boss. It's going to be Bloodline rules. But just like Gunther, this championship is in no danger from coming out of Cody Rhodes' hands until at the very least after Crown Jewel, because the feud between now and Crown Jewel is a non-title feud. This is the problem with what they've done to Crown Jewel. It's just a big exhibition that doesn't really push narratives forward. Anyways, that's a conversation for a different video. I've talked about that at length. I'm not going to change my mind. Look, people still think that I'm reaching. People still think that I'm crazy. I think it's going to be the final boss. I think it's going to be The Rock. I think that this is who The Rock is going to initially gun after. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes into WrestleMania 41 as champion to defend against Roman Reigns. All right? I'm just saying, all right? I think it's going to be The Rock. I've been saying this since pretty much WrestleMania 40 ended. So I'm going to stick with this. I'm not changing it. Call me crazy if you want. Look, I've made these predictions where there was very little tying them. But now since the return of The Rock, those ties are starting to strengthen. So maybe come next month and maybe come New Year when WWE is on Netflix, this will be an even stronger prediction. So I'm going to go with The Rock, the final boss. It's going to be Bloodline rules. Mama Rhodes, look at your son now. That's who I think is going to dethrone Cody Rhodes. All right, folks, thanks so much for watching this video. That's it. I'm done. Thank you for watching. Get out of here.